Well, I'm really excited to be here. Dave LaCroix, honestly, one of my favorite follows online. I'm so glad I stumbled across you. OA Deals on Instagram. So thank you for being here, Dave. And I look forward to diving into this.
No problem. I'm excited.
Yeah, so first things I want to say, and truthfully, I mean this. You are my favorite follow on Instagram for the Amazon space, and I say that with no exaggeration. And as a fanboy, I guess you could say, I have the receipts to prove it. I've messaged you, and you know what it is? You were the first person that really opened my eyes to Product Finder on Keepa, and that has literally changed the game for me. So I'm grateful.
That's awesome. I'm glad you're utilizing it and it's working for you.
Yeah, no, totally. And we'll get into the different sourcing methods, but for anybody that's not doing Keep a Product Finder, it's incredible once you get the hang of it. And I feel like I'm just scratching the surface and it's changed my business. So something I like to always start with, I'm always curious, like, I know where you're at now, or I have an idea of where you're at now. If I'm not mistaken, over 10 million in revenue from online selling. How did you get your start with Amazon? Did you begin reselling on other platforms? I'd love to hear like when and how you got started.
Yeah. So it's 10 million, but over 6 years. So I'm not doing 10 million a year.
Right, right.
So that's a kind of a big difference. But
Yeah.
I started in 2016. So I was actually working at Disney World in Orlando. That's where I live now. But I was in the college program and it was just like a minimum wage internship and I didn't really like it all that much. So I was looking for things to do on the side to make money. And then I kind of just Googled like how to make money online and I stumbled across selling on Amazon. Originally, I was going to do private label, but then I kind of realized you need a little bit more capital to get started with that. So I discovered retail arbitrage and I basically went to Walmart and just scanned a bunch of stuff. Didn't really have that much success with it the first couple times, but then eventually I found out here in Orlando, we have a lot of outlet stores. So I went to the North Face outlet and I was scanning their backpacks and I bought like 10 backpacks and that was like $500, which was a lot for me at that time. And I sent them all into Amazon and I sold all of them within like a week. And I was like, damn, this has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
So then by the time my internship ended a few months later, I was actually making more with Amazon than I did at my job. So I was like, I'm just going to try this and see where it goes. And I've been doing it ever since.
So a couple of things. One, I actually went to UCF in Orlando.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm from South Florida. My dad still lives in Orlando, and the other thing is that, you know, it's so funny. So you, Hustle Buddies, Nate Jackson, I'm pretty sure Chris Grant, and the Happy Hustlers, I think all have ties to Orlando, if I'm not mistaken. But that's interesting that so many live in that area.
Yeah. Yeah. I know Chris Grant. He used to live in like Ohio or something, and then he just like moved here.
Yeah,
So I'm not sure about those other people, but yeah, it's a
cool.
good area
Yeah.
for RA for sure.
South Florida was incredible for RA, in my opinion. Sorry, what are you seeing me as glitchy by chance?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what that is. I have the internet's fine. I think it's just, let me unplug my camera real quick. All right, there we go. Okay, so yeah, no. So I did retail arbitrage in South Florida and it was incredible. Publix grocery stores is really where I like got my start, and they're everywhere and there's just so much. South Florida especially is very congested. But it's funny, when I was in school, A, I worked part-time at one of the outlets, and B, I used to try to flip shoes from Nike outlets on eBay, and I didn't really have a whole lot of success, but it's interesting the tie in there with the outlets and what you're saying. So,
Yeah.
okay,
I
so
remember
yeah.
when I started, I like went into the Nike outlet and I was gated for like the first year that I was selling. And I was always like, oh man, there's so much opportunity because I could like see the profits, but I couldn't buy anything. And
Yeah,
back then, like there weren't as many people out there talking about how to get ungated.
right.
So it was like a little bit more difficult then.
Yeah. No, even when I started just like 3 years ago, I feel like there's been a huge um shift in just like, hey, here's how you get ungated. Like
Yeah.
there's no guesswork. You can't sell a $50 course anymore. Like it's out there, you know?
Yeah, there used to be so many like pay $200 and I'll get you ungated
Yeah,
in
exactly.
services.
All right, so 2016, you get your feet wet, you're having success early on, retail arbitrage, which I think is just such a natural progression to start with that. I did it myself. When and how did you make the shift to OA?
So basically I wanted to not just rely so much on just RA. So
Yeah,
I hired my first VA like I think it was in like 2018, and they were just kind of doing a little bit of OA for me, and I tried to review the leads each day. And I was still pretty heavy doing RA because I had a couple stores where I had relationships with like the management there, and they would let me buy a ton of stuff.
yeah,
But then eventually I got cut off from that just because like the upper management changed.
yeah,
And by that point, I had more VAs and we were doing more OA, and it's basically the same analysis. But now I just get better bang for my buck basically doing OA because we're churning out a lot of leads each day. So I just review those, and I can usually spend a lot more per day doing OA than I can with RA now because it's
right.
not like I have a team of shoppers or anything.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we transitioned from RA to OA. But it took several years. I was doing RA pretty heavy for the first 4 or so years.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the margins on RA are phenomenal. So like if anyone, if I was talking to a friend and they were starting and or had limited capital, would you agree? I mean, that's the route
Yeah.
in terms of maximizing your return, right?
Yeah, there's so much less tanking with RA too.
Right.
So you can find stuff at that's just clearance at one local store. So only people
Exactly.
that live near that store have access to it.
Exactly. It's funny. Even literally today, I'm not kidding. I justified buying a second coffee today by going in my now where I live. There's a grocery chain called Ingles, and they have Starbucks in there. And I was like, all right, I'll get the coffee, but I'm gonna do RA for a minute and see if I can offset
Yeah.
this. And sure enough, there was like a coffee a brand that's like 60% off. So it made $50 in like 2 minutes. So like I say that to say I can't see a time that I'll ever not do RA out of principle of just not packing up a couple of things. To each their own, you know what I mean? But like I think I'm really glad I started with RA. It'll always be a part of my repertoire moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also nice just to get out of like sitting behind your computer all the time.
100%. I think that's something like I love interacting with people. Something that I do almost daily. I'm a morning person. I get up early. I actually go to a different coffee shop almost every day, and I do my get my sourcing situated there because I like the newness, the scenery. Like you said, it can become boring or lonely. And I find for me, new environment, new scenery gets the juices flowing a little. I've seen Chris Grant talk about like setting candles and the mood in his place, his home office. I completely agree. It becomes boring. There's really no way around it.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's nice. Like I feel like like you said, you just do better work when you're moving around.
Yeah, no, totally. So, all right. So there's the progression. Huge success with OA now. Um, Something that I noticed, correct me if I'm wrong. Do you have a warehouse now where you do your prep
Yeah.
and stuff? Okay. So I was really curious. What was your mindset on going that route and having to, I would imagine, hire people to help with the prep and pack as opposed to just going with a prep center?
Now, and actually it'll be 4 soon, but at the time I got it, I was doing a lot of RA, and
Hmm.
because I was getting all the products in person, it made no sense for me to ship it to a prep center and then
Right.
pay for them to do it. And like we were getting it all like sales tax free, so we weren't saving much there either.
Yeah.
So some sellers, they'll, if you don't live in a tax-free state, they'll ship an OA order to a tax-free state, and then that the savings in tax basically pays for the prep. So
Right.
we do that now with OA, but at that time it was like it made no sense to do a prep center, and plus with the volume we were doing, it would have just been more expensive than what the rent was to
Okay.
get a warehouse.
And just out of curiosity, like what does a warehouse that suffices what you need run? And granted, you're in Central Florida. I would imagine this is higher than the average, but just so if someone hears this, what they could expect and maybe the square footage.
Yeah, mine's 2,000 square feet and it's 2,500 a month right
Okay.
now. It was 2,000 a month on my first lease, but we just did a second lease and it went up.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I've even thought about even potentially buying a warehouse for somebody could make a lot of sense, because then at least if you're in an area you believe it's going to appreciate in value, it's like you can kind of almost see it as an investment too, and maybe
yeah,
even just take on a handful of prep center clients too to offset it. I think there could be a lot of ways to make it work. I think it's just personal preference, but I'm kind of new to the prep center game, and on one end it's great, but on the other, there's nothing like, when it's your own stuff, this product, have an opportunity because it's an out of stock item. I need to get it in quick, right?
yeah,
Or this bundle is really atypical. You got to put a little padding in or something like that. So there's no replicating that, but everything has the pros and cons, of course.
yeah. And just doing like the final check on things. If sometimes items are slightly different than the listing on Amazon,
Yep.
and sometimes that's not even your fault. Like the
Right.
site will just decide to send you something different, or maybe someone updated the Amazon listing, and like someone working at a prep center is probably not really going to care as
Right.
long as it looks close enough.
Right.
But little stuff like that, it's nice to be able to do it yourself.
I totally agree. And I'm someone that did my due diligence and got referrals and stuff, but I've kind of already mentally accepted, I think I'm going to have to do 5%, let's say, more in sales to offset any issues, headaches, whatever with the prep center. But for me and my circumstances, I'm willing to accept that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just a trade-off, but I think people need to be realistic with that. Bottom line is nobody treats your business the way that you're going to treat your business.
Yeah. Yeah. And like with us, now that we've transitioned more to OA, we're like considering whether we want to keep the warehouse long term. And
Yeah.
like I like the people that we work with right now at the warehouse, but like hiring more people, it's like the bigger it gets, the more headaches you're gonna run into.
100%. Yeah.
So we're thinking about maybe just transitioning all to a prep center once our next lease is up.
Yeah. Cool. So let me ask you this. How did you land? I know the transition from RA to OA, but at this current stage, knowing what you know now, what makes you stay at OA versus hypothetically wholesale, maybe at this point getting into private label? Like, what's your take on that?
So we actually are doing some wholesale right
Okay.
now. I think that private label's kind of a totally different skill set. And like with OA and wholesale, you can really scale it as far as you want to. Our biggest like thing holding us back right now is just finding time to like source more products. So it's not like we feel like we need to move into private label or something to make more money. But yeah, so that's
Yeah.
basically it.
When you say we, that's you and VAs, is that correct? Or your sourcing team, or do you
Yeah,
have a
so
partner?
I have like 2 employees at our warehouse and then a team of VAs.
Okay. Awesome. Um, yeah, no, the private label thing is interesting to me. So something I love about OA is just like the opportunity. Every day I just feel like it's more and more plentiful. But on the flip side, to play devil's advocate, the one thing that I don't like about OA or RA is that even though this is a business, a lot of, let's call them traditional businesses, if you create a successful business, you like to think there's an exit strategy one day of selling the business, right? And
Yeah.
unless I'm just fully mistaken, I don't think there's any market to buy an arbitrage business. Would you concur? Like, is that safe to say?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know too much about like exiting a business, but I would think it's definitely harder to sell than private label.
Right. That's the only thing that really intrigues me about private label. I agree it's a completely different beast. Just because you're selling something on Amazon, it's a whole new game. But something is very enticing about, in theory, if you get a few good products, it's like it's pretty hands off, at least from what I grasp from, a bird's eye view. But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
everything, yeah.
I kind of feel if we were to like launch our own product, it would kind of be, we might do Amazon as part of it, but also trying to focus on building our customer base off of Amazon as
Yeah.
opposed to just like being narrowly focused on private label on Amazon.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I always talk about, I think about if I were to do private label, there's conflicting opinions. Do you go Amazon? Do you do Shopify? Both, whatever. And it's like Amazon's such a beast, but also I never want to always have all my eggs in one basket, even if it is Amazon. So,
Yeah.
so speaking of that, I think that's a good transition actually. So I'm actually a customer of yours because I have OA Buddy, and I would love to hear or your explanation of it and also how it came to be. And I didn't know when you launched it as well.
So we do, as I've said, we do a lot of online arbitrage, and one of the biggest problems for us and what other people have run into, because we run like a leads list, so we get a lot of feedback from that, is just that sites are canceling people's orders. And we were trying to like keep track of it ourselves, just like how much we can order at each site. And then I just realized that like other people want this same information. So I decided to create a Chrome extension that gives you a pop-up when you're on a retail site, exactly how much you can order from that site without getting canceled. And it's not a 100% perfect system because there's a lot of different reasons why a site might cancel your order. So like, even if we're able to buy 20 units from somewhere, maybe somebody else won't be able to because their billing and shipping didn't match and ours did. But it at least gives you like an idea of how much you can purchase, and hopefully helps you from getting blocked from that retail site, because then you can't buy anything from there. So
Yeah.
it was kind of for our own use as well. And then I decided to like offer it to our clients. And as soon as I launched it, like a bunch of influencers were like coming out of the woodwork, like, oh, this is so cool. Like, let me be an affiliate. And so it kind of just blew up after that.
And when did you launch that?
It was like, I think June of last year.
Okay. And so as someone who's just intrigued by business as a whole, how long did it take you from ideation to launch, and how much capital?
It was very cheap. Like, I just hired a developer on Upwork, and I think I paid him $25 an hour. It probably cost me like $500.
Wow.
Because
That's
if you
incredible.
like, the software is not that complex.
Right.
I just said, build me like a note-taking app that will give you a pop-up on a website with like a back-end database.
Yeah.
So I can just go in and add new sites whenever I want now. So yeah, it took probably 6 months to collect all of our order data, because I was like going back through all my order emails from every order I've ever done to try to like compile all the information.
Yeah.
So yeah, about 6 months, but the actual development of the software probably didn't take that long, like maybe a month.
That's awesome. And for anybody that's not familiar, I'm not just saying this, but when you do online arbitrage, you know, you start to go crazy, you know, especially when you're early on. It's like, oh, I found a winning site, a winning product, I'm going to go all in. And then very quickly, it's like, I just spent 3 hours sourcing and it all got canceled for nothing. And now they have your account or information and it's a red flag. So I think what's great about OA Buddy is, like you said, it's not necessarily like the most revolutionary tech in the world, but I think like all good tools, if it saves me literally one order from being canceled, it's already paid for its lifetime subscription at the price point it is. And by the way, I'll have a link below. I link it in all my videos now, like an affiliate link for it. But I think it's great. I think it's one of those things, like I said, as long as it saves you one order, it's paid for itself, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, people can also contribute, if I'm not mistaken, like, hey, I just experienced this at this site. I can submit that information. Is that correct, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, that's right. So there's like a support section in there, and there's like a Google form where you can fill out if a site canceled your order. And then we just ask for just a screenshot of the email from the company so we can verify
Yeah.
that someone's not just like making stuff up.
Trying to deter people from,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
yeah. I gotcha.
So that's
smart.
helped us get some new data where it's like crowdsourced information.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about adding like maybe just like a small course to the OA Buddy, just free for anyone that has it. That would just cover like some other best practices, like using a VPN, using PayPal, because I think a lot of people just think they can order as much as they want on a site, and sometimes that's not the case.
100%. And I'm not just saying this, but if anyone doesn't already follow Dave's Instagram, a lot of this game is given out regularly. So I know you've talked about the VPN and the PayPal even recently. And by the way, I've done this before that. I've literally been blocked from sites, and then my first time had an aha moment of using PayPal, and it literally works a lot. Like just that one simple thing it's really crazy how, you know. And I think in general, a lot of OA is like gritty stuff, like willing to like do little, it's like little tactics, it's little games. How do you gain the edge from stacking discounts or little stuff like this to not get your orders canceled? So I'm right there with you. I got to get a VPN though. That's something I need to do for sure.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised at how well PayPal works, because I didn't use it for the longest time as well.
Yeah. All right. So I want to ask you, so 6 years in, you're saying that the biggest problem is there's not enough time in the day because you can find products all day long, which I believe, by the way, because the more I do this, the more I see the abundance. I'm always curious, what is your, I know no 2 days are the same, but like, could you give me a typical day in the life when you're working? And specifically, like, how many hours are you personally sourcing? Yeah, I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, so usually the first thing I do each day is I try to post like once a day on Instagram, and then also I'll go through my email, and that can sometimes take up to like an hour or more, maybe a little more. And then I try to go through the leads each day. So I'll look at the leads that my VAs found on our leads list and decide which ones we're going to buy. And then from there, sometimes I'll look for some new wholesale accounts. And a lot of times I'll actually find potential wholesale products from the online arbitrage products, because sometimes my VAs are like finding new brands, and I'm like, maybe I should just try to do this one wholesale. And then some days I'll review like wholesale catalogs, or basically. So I'll basically put in, probably like yesterday, I probably put in 6 or 7 hours of sourcing. But I mean, that's probably on the higher end. Some days I end up having other things pop up.
Yeah. And your sourcing though is primarily on the wholesale side, whereas in your VAs tends to be more OA. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I pretty much do like most of the wholesale sourcing for our business, but I still end up doing a lot of OA because they're finding a lot of leads each
Yeah.
day.
So by the way, I don't have any VAs. It's something that's certainly been top of mind. And I really have the mindset though, they're only going to be as valuable as I'm capable of explaining exactly what to do is, right? And I'm curious, like, what has been your success with the VAs? Do you find that like you've just done it long enough and you said, for instance, product finder, type in, use these searches and product finder, or do this or that, or like, how do you give them guidance on how to find products?
So we have a lot of training videos just built up over the years. And like I did a webinar with them back like a few months ago on different ways to use Keep a Product Finder. And so I basically let them decide like how they want to source each day, but we usually have like one VA who will use TA, and then a few of them will do product finder, and then some of them will just look for sales and source those sales.
Okay.
Because if a sale's really good, that can often be like a way to find way more products than just using the product finder.
Right, right. And do you have any, at this point, I feel like you're so large that I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you have any like top categories that you really like leaning on, or are you guys all over the place?
For us, we like beauty and clothing. We just like selling the higher dollar per unit items.
Yes.
Because like with grocery, you really have to move a lot of volume.
Right.
We do some grocery, but it's all wholesale.
Yep. Okay. You know, it's funny. Let me ask your opinion on this. This literally occurred to me this morning. I actually filmed a reel before this about this. I came across a beauty variation, and there was probably, no exaggeration, 30 variations, right? And I love variations because I think a lot of sellers don't know how to properly read them and go into Keepa, right? So that's an advantage, and how to find them to begin with. But anyway, there's only one or two sellers. And I noticed that going back a year, even when there was 10 or 20, the price was always between $30 and $35. And from my experience, when there's such a difference in the amount of sellers and there's only a few like there is today, you can usually charge a premium. Makes sense, supply and demand, right? But then I thought about it, and I always try to think about it from a customer's viewpoint. If there's 40 different shades of concealer, and let's just say my shade is right in the middle at number 20, I'm not willing to pay $60 for number 20 if I can buy 18 and 19 for 35, or 21 and 22 for 35. And then I was like, wait, in beauty, for certain things, it might actually be that so many variations can be detrimental in being able to charge a premium. And I just want to bounce that off of you. Have you thought about that? Or as I'm telling you it and you haven't thought about it, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I've definitely thought about that. I think for certain products, it does make sense, like for your beauty example. But like if I'm a size 7.5 shoe, then like I'm probably gonna pay a little extra to get my actual size, then
Right.
go up a size and have it not fit just to save $20.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think you're right in certain situations.
Totally. And like if it's cosmetics, just using that, if it's lipstick and it's blue, green, red, purple, yellow, obviously none of them are really replaceable of the other. But if it's brown, different shade of brown, different shade of brown, it's like, you know, there's more
tan versus medium honey.
Exactly. I think that really just drives home the point. You have to think like a customer sometimes and their behavior, and it kind of leads you down the right path. So yeah, I'm glad you that was just interesting. I came across that, and I have little moments like that. 3 years in, I still have moments like that almost daily. Like, oh yeah, this little thought, you
Yeah.
know, it's crazy.
Or if it's like a water bottle or something, like a lot of people probably won't care whether they get a blue or green one if the green one's $20 cheaper.
Right. 100%. Yeah. It's definitely like a item by item or category type of thing.
Yeah.
All right. So something I want to ask you, you know, so I know you, to be clear, as you clarified, and by the way, that is what I meant early on, 10 million total in sales. Do Do you have any growing pains that really stick out to you, or any like major hiccups or hurdles, or would you just say just little to be expected things along the way?
Yeah, so dealing with Amazon is has always been very tough. I think it's gotten easier over the years,
Yeah.
but just like with dealing with IP claims and different things like that. And then usually when you message them, they send you back a generic response.
Right.
And so that has been tough over the years. I think I used to stress out about it a lot more because I would be in different Facebook groups and everyone would have horror stories of how they got suspended. But now I don't really worry about it too much. So little stuff like that. And then
Yeah.
just as I said earlier, just finding the time to source more. And I think the next step for me is having other people make purchasing decisions so that I can spend more money, because it's all about how much inventory you can buy when it comes to increasing your revenue and then hopefully increasing your profit.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing what your current spend goal is on like a monthly basis, if you have one?
Yeah, so I'd like to be spending about like 35,000 per week, which
Okay.
is like
So
around
140.
130, 140 per month.
Okay, cool.
But we haven't been hitting that lately, but that's like where I'd like to get to. In Q4, with all for OA, there's so many sales, it's a lot easier to spend a lot of money. Like I think Black Friday weekend, we probably spent like 100K.
Wow. You know, it's just wild. This was my third Q4, but my first one doing OA and my first time really feeling it. And I had my best month ever in December and even into January, because like you're talking about, the sales between no Thanksgiving and Christmas were insane. Any decent product throughout the year is 30% off basically at
Yeah.
some point in time, and that actually really opened my eyes that I am bullish now on keeping track of not only everything I've bought, but everything that's a good seller that just doesn't have enough profit, because now I know there will at least be 1 or 2 times a year where those products will I'll be very glad that I spent that extra 30 seconds keeping track of that product.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
So,
we
oh,
were
yeah.
we were basically looking back like Black Friday weekend. I was looking back at like all the products we bought previously that did like at least $100 profit, and like a bunch of them don't make sense most of the time, but when they're
Right.
30% off, they're definitely worth it.
100%. This was my first real taste of like, okay, when people say you triple, quadruple, like, okay, I get it now. Like, and next year I'll be really prepared for it. And also for those people earlier on, like, just double down on what you already know. And just, I always say Amazon's a long-term play. And I do want to touch upon something. I'd like to ask everyone this, and you alluded to it with the IP complaints and stuff. I, like you, was in Facebook groups and I heard horror stories. And to be honest, it really slowed down my progress, because in the back of my head, I always thought that this could easily happen. And I like to put it out there now that I have 3 years under my belt. And I'm curious if I think you would agree with this. But those people that have horror stories probably deserved it. And if you do things the right way, I almost feel like nothing is insurmountable now, especially like someone like yourself, or even at my level. There's so many units that we've sold now that I think you have a nice, outstanding track record. But, the horror stories, are loud, but it's the loud minority. And would you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think now that I've been doing it for 6 years and seen like, okay, we've been as careful as we possibly can and nothing really has happened. And
Yeah.
then also just hearing of some people that have been suspended, usually like if you bother Amazon enough about it and keep appealing and appealing, they'll eventually let you back on.
Yeah.
And like you said, like I think a lot of the people that do get suspended are doing really dumb stuff. Like you probably get a lot of questions as well of people just asking you basic things that are in the Amazon terms of service.
Right.
And a lot of people just don't read those and they just think they can do something that they can't.
Yeah. No, totally. It's interesting because there's no way around it. It's an acquired, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it's an acquired thing to be comfortable spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and just kind of having this faith in Amazon that they're not going to just like screw you over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we definitely built up to it. Like I remember my first Q4, I was like a couple months into it, and I probably spent like a couple $1,000, and I was like, oh, should I spend more money? I don't know. Like this
I
seems really
know.
risky.
I
And
know.
now it's like I'll spend 100K in a weekend, and it's like I wish I could spend more. Like,
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. So, by the way, what are you using for all that spending you're doing? Are you using the what's the 2% cashback Spark card unlimited by chance?
no, I used to have that card, but they canceled it on me, and I think they thought I was doing something sketchy, but they wouldn't like give me a reason why they canceled it. So now I have the Chase Ink Premier
Mhm.
that it's a newer card, but it's also 2%.
Oh,
And then
okay. So, oh yeah.
it's actually 2.5% on transactions over $5,000.
Wow. Okay. I'm just doing some real simple math. Like, so if you spend so let's just say you spend 1.5 million a year. So you're making like 30K just off of that credit card and cashback, if not more than that, you know?
Yeah, and there's ways to like get extra value out of your chase points and stuff like that. So I basically make like 30 or 40K a year off of just rewards.
And then not even including Rakuten and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so that's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Have that.
By the way, now that you've been doing this, I know it's really hard to pinpoint, but if you were to total your cashback points just on the extensions like Rakuten, Be Frugal, whatever, do you have a ballpark idea or maybe an exact number of what that percentage is? I'm curious for my own sake.
For percentage of sales or
No, so like you know how like the pop-up will be like 1%, 3%, 5%, 10%, 20%?
yeah.
Like for every $100 you spend on average, what amount do you think you're getting back from Rakuten? Like $3, 5?
Um, it's really hard to say because every
Right.
site's different. And then some sites like don't even have cash back.
Yeah.
So it maybe averages 3%.
Okay, that's the exact number I use to ballpark it. So I use that. And for my own sake, the reason I'm sharing this is like I know I have a 2% cashback credit card and I use the extensions all the time. I think 3% is even very conservative because all the time I'm getting 5, 6, 7, 10 sometimes. So that's just nice to know. Whatever I spend in a year, 5%, I'm getting back tax free. From my understanding, I'm not an accountant, but
Yeah.
no, that's stuff I'm 99% sure is tax free. It's kind of seen as like a coupon or a discount type of thing. But I mean, that's enough to pay for a lot of people's lifestyle if you live simply and you just spend a lot on the business, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, Speaking of money, did you ever encounter, I think there's a major uh misconception or misunderstanding of cash flow, right? This is a retail business. There's inventory, there's lag time. Did you ever have any hiccups with cash flow along the way that you can remember?
Yeah, so probably earlier on, like especially in Q4, just spending all of our money and then trying to decide what to do. So we have taken out like Amazon loans in the past,
Yeah.
and we kind of look at that as suspension insurance also. So we've heard that it's good to like have Amazon have some skin in the game in you continuing to sell on Amazon. So we've done a few loans with them, but the interest rate on them is really bad. It's like they vary between like 9 and 12%.
Yeah.
So it's not the most efficient use of capital, but we kind of consider it suspension insurance. So when
That
we have been scrapped for cash, that's basically what we do.
that's really interesting you say that. I took out my first Amazon loan and I was really like juggling the idea of it, but for me it was as long as I go above and beyond what capital I have readily available to me, I know I'm going to make more off of their money than the interest, right? That was one.
Yeah.
And it's two was partly what you just said. And I'm so glad you said it. Whether there's truth to it or not, I felt, and maybe it was wishful thinking, that this is going to help just give me a further layer of protection from my Amazon being suspended because they have skin in the game and they want to get their money back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's really
Yeah.
interesting you say that.
Even though they don't admit it, I think it just makes logical sense that they
Exactly.
would want you to keep selling.
100%. By the way, speaking of that, I was going to ask you this. Do you have you heard of like Amazon lawyer retainers or anything like that to give you peace of mind for your Amazon business, especially at the level you're at, you know? Like a couple days or weeks suspended is huge money for you.
Yeah, I've thought about it. It's probably something that I should do. And I know like Chris Grant has a guy that he recommends, and he did a podcast with him. I can't remember his name, but
Jeff.
I should
I only know
probably
because I only know because I did it. Jeff Schick. And
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
I got some cease and desist letters going into Q4, and I was like, you know what? If nothing else, for peace of mind during Q4, let's keep them, and then let's go from there. You know?
Yeah. I should probably do that. Because we get quite a few of those letters. I feel like they've ramped up more in like the last year of companies sending those.
What do you do with them?
We'll usually just stop selling the products.
Okay.
We don't, I mean, it's obviously not legal advice, but we don't like take it too seriously. If we had a situation where we had like a huge amount of inventory on that brand, I'd probably just hire a lawyer for that to figure it out.
Yeah.
But we haven't run into that yet. And a lot of the emails we get now, they're not technically cease and desist, but like the company will just want to know where you bought your inventory. Like
Yeah.
I think a big company that does that, they're called Vantage BP.
Okay.
And it'll just be like, hey, where did you buy this? And then you send them your receipt, and then they're like, thanks, we'll let you know if we need anything else.
Okay. So
So
you
they're
do
not all
respond.
super serious. Yeah.
Okay. I've gotten the cease and desist I got was from Voorhees, which, you know, companies hire them, they give out letters, and it probably scares off 99% of people. But what's interesting is, and by the way, I do a lot of vitamins, and that's what I got, those two big vitamin brands. But I go on to those listings and I see other sellers still selling them. So that kind of tells me this person maybe didn't get a letter, or maybe they did and they just said, F it, you know, like I'm just going to roll with it. And it kind of shows me nothing actually like litigation wise happens. But I also kind of feel, is the juice worth the squeeze? But there's one brand I really would like to sell, and I'm kind of on the fence about it. So would you say it's safe to say your opinion is there's too much opportunity on Amazon? Why even bother?
Yeah, I wouldn't knowingly sell a brand that like I know the brand is probably gonna come after me on,
Yeah.
but we're not like, if we have 10 units left of something, then we're probably just gonna ride it out,
Yeah.
or maybe if they're cheap, we'll just pull them down and we'll donate them. So it kind of is a case by case thing
Yeah.
on how much money we have invested in those products.
100%. That was my thing, was like, just drop the price, get it sold, move on. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
maybe reevaluate it in a couple months.
Yeah, I think they probably, like, the chances of them filing a lawsuit are probably very low. But again, I'm not a lawyer or anything, so
Yeah. No,
not legal advice.
I would agree with you. I think it just comes down to, is it worth it? Is it worth the mental space? And I think I will say this, the more that you sell on Amazon and the more brands and categories and stuff, each particular brand and item means less and less to you. But when you're a new seller and you only have 50 items, it's like, oh, this is 25% of my catalog. I work so hard to find these. I don't want to give them up, you know? But I think as your business matures, it's just like, it's part of the game, on to the next one, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much inevitable if you do any kind of volume with OA or wholesale.
Yeah. At this stage in the game, or when did you make the shift? If you did, do you pay yourself a salary, a percentage? Like, do you follow profit first, like a lot of people recommend? I'm curious on that because I think that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot.
Yeah, so I did read that book, Profit First, and basically I have like a base salary, which is not very much compared to the amount the business makes.
Yeah.
And then I kind of go month by month, like depending on how much the total profit was, I try to take about half of that and then take that out of the business and invest in other things. But like if there's I know if there's like an opportunity coming up to buy a lot of inventory that I know about, then maybe I would just leave that money in the business because I can likely get a better return on it just keeping it in my Amazon business than taking it out.
Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. I always think that's an interesting thing. And I think from myself, when I was new and I see a lot of new people, it's like, if someone shows you that they made 10 grand profit, I always say your bank account doesn't reflect 10 grand profit like a paycheck would, because there's a lot of money tied up in inventory. And if you grow, especially fast, you're spending quicker than it can come out. You know what I mean? And that's why
Yeah.
I'm so bullish on keep the day job. If you want to do this, prove that you like it, prove that you're into it, and do it on nights and weekends. This has such flexible hours. That's just like a hill that I'm willing to die on for now, because I think I also, when I not for Amazon, but I quit the corporate world to go cold turkey into a business, which it's all worked out. But knowing what I know now, I'd be like, just work on the nights and weekends and stuff like that for a couple of years, save a lot of stress and headache, you know?
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and that's what we do now, but like when I started, I pretty much just took out money that I needed to pay bills and
Right.
then it reinvested everything else back into the business.
Yeah, no, 100%. That seems to be a very common theme of successful sellers. I think you get a taste of what's out there and it's like, well, I'd rather turn this money over, and reinvest it and spend more and more and more because eventually it'll pay off, you know? Speaking of, do you think you'll like always scale, or will there be a point in time that you know of, or just feel that there'll be you know what, this is enough. My hands are full. I'm content. I like my lifestyle. Like, can you see that happening in the relatively near future, or have you thought about that?
I haven't really thought too much about it, but I think I enjoy like business and
Yeah.
trying to improve it. So, I don't know, maybe at some point I get to a place where I'm like, I don't want to scale this anymore,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I mean, there's businesses that have like not that many employees but do a ton of revenue, and then there's probably some that have a ton of employees but don't do as much. And I think that's really where a lot of the stress comes in, is just like having a lot of people under you.
Yeah.
So
Right.
um yeah, I don't have a solid answer on that one.
Yeah. Do do you think this opportunity of being a third party seller on Amazon is here for years to come? Like no end finish line in sight?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of brands don't really want to do it themselves.
Mhm.
So there's always going to be that opportunity. And then
Yeah.
a lot of sellers or a lot of brands don't want like anything to do with Amazon because it's just their business strategy. Like Nike, for example, right now,
Yeah.
they don't want to sell on Amazon. So the only way for Amazon to have Nike shoes is for people like us to go and buy them at the outlet and then sell them on there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think e-commerce, as huge as Amazon is, it's still like got so much more to go. It's crazy. Like even me, I'm 35, but like I didn't start using Amazon until 2 years ago. And once I got a taste, I'll never go back, like it's just so damn convenient. Like it's seamless. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. I kind of think that too myself. I think it's here for a long time. And as far as good sellers go, even if there's more sellers in the marketplace, well, I think demand continues to go up, or users of e-commerce. And furthermore, any industry the market always has room for the best. So if you're good at this, there will always be opportunity for you, and arbitrage will always be a thing because there's always going to be discrepancies in any marketplace, you know. So I think that's undeniable.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
We'll start wrapping up here. I am curious because I did one thing, as I mentioned earlier on, keep a product finder. Probably my favorite way to source. And I know you share a ton of information about that on your Instagram. Is that your go-to nowadays when you do the sourcing? I know you mix it up with the VAs, but like for you, manual, reverse, you know, there's information about all of this. I'm sure a combination of them all, but like if you had to say you're only allowed to do one form of sourcing, which one would it be and why?
Yeah, I think I would go with keep a product finder if I had to choose just one, because you're you're starting with products that have desirable keep a charts, which it's like that's basically what we're looking for in a product, is a product that has consistent buy box pricing, um, and then like a solid sales rank. So with the product finder, you can start with those products and then Google them to find the best ones. Where if you use tactical arbitrage, for example, or just do regular manual sourcing, you're going to run into a ton of products that have like no reviews, no sales rank, or are just not profitable. So
Yeah,
I think it's the most efficient way to do it.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And like for anybody not using it, I strongly encourage you to start dabbling with it. It's, you know, there's a lot of filters to go through, but it can be intimidating. But I mean, go to his page, his Instagram, simple enough, but like you don't have to make it crazy complex and still have success with it. So awesome. Well, listen, man, I really appreciate your time. Like I said, I get so much value out of your Instagram. It's OA Deals, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep, that's it.
Is there anywhere else people could check you out?
Um, at OA Deals on Twitter.
Okay,
That's pretty much the only other one that I do right now.
cool.
I have a YouTube channel too, but I haven't done much with it. I
Yeah.
think that one's just Dave LaCroix.
Okay. Awesome, man. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Yep.